All right, we're back. It's Dave, the IT guy at Bring Your Own Security Radio. Long, long ago in a galaxy far, far away, which I cannot tell you where because then I'd have to kill you, I met a person, and his name be Micah. Now, for those of you that follow me on Twitter, you will have seen that I've added Micah Brown. He is known for some of his talks, but probably more important, at least more importantly to me, is that he's known for some pretty kick-ass barbecue at different security type of conferences. So if you've never met Micah Brown, you've never heard any of his talks, and you've never eaten any of his barbecue, are you even in the security field, I wonder? Because there's no way that you can say no to all three of those questions. So without further ado, let me bring on my guest and my friend, Micah Brown. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for inviting me on and the very kind introduction.
Well, I got to tell you, a lot of folks, as we travel across this wide sphere of what we call the security world and the hacker world, people that I meet for the first time, and I say I live in Cincinnati and stuff. I've had some of them, at events at Black Hat and DEF CON and other places say, oh, have you ever met Micah? I saw him at X convention or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, how could I not know him? He lives in my town. So, so it's amazing how well this field really does kind of, even though we're kind of petty sometimes on social media, it seems like when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, there's a lot of great people on a global scale in this industry that really seem to interconnect.
Yeah, that's been my experience. So between going through and volunteering on our local ISSA chapter, going through and speaking at some of these conferences and hosting my pretty well-known meetups, that's how I try to give back to the community in my own way.
Well, it's certainly been fun having seen your efforts at DerbyCon, especially this last one where you literally were handing out sandwiches on the street to anybody that was walking by, up into our most recent local meetup with within the Cincinnati area. It's amazing how food will get somebody's attention regardless of whatever else might be on their mind. And when you combine good security topics and good food, it's kind of hard to not want to be involved. So you're definitely appreciated for that. Well, let's take a minute, and for those that might not know you, there's probably one person left in this country that hasn't met you yet. Take a minute to kind of introduce yourself, a little bit about who you are and what you do. I know that you're affiliated with SSA, as you just mentioned, so just take a minute and kind of give out whatever information you want to give out about yourself.
So sure, thank you for the opportunity. So my path into security is kind of what used to be the traditional path. I started out of college, going through and working the help desk. In going through and working the help desk, I started to check the server logs, started to see what the errors were, started to clean them up. That promoted me into a typical server type of role, server admin role. Once again, applied myself, taught myself, became too valuable. I got moved over to the networking team, went through and interacted with a very large MSSP for several years, where I started out at a junior engineer and worked my way up into a senior engineer before making the ultimate jump over into security. And one of the things that really helped me make that professional transition was working with many of the groups in the Cincinnati area. And if you're in the Cincinnati area, I'd love to have you at any and all of our events. If you're not in the Cincinnati area, I urge you find those meetup groups that bring value to yourself. So for me, it was the ISSA. I was just looking back, and it looks like I've been volunteering with the ISSA for 10 years now, which is amazing. But there's also groups like the Cincinnati SNBA. There's an ISC chapter here in Cincinnati, as well as our good friend Matt Shear actually has his Cincinnati Simpa SIG group meeting later tonight, and it's been virtualized.
I did see an email that he sent out about that, and I'll make sure that for the folks that do follow me on Twitter, I know that it gets tweeted out, but I'll make sure that I retweet tonight that link. And for those of you who are outside of Cincinnati that normally would not get to come to one of his events, I can tell you that Matt's events attract a larger than what you would think crowd for what is considered kind of local/regional thing. Even Dave Kennedy from, well, we don't have to say anything more about him, but he came down from Cleveland last month and spoke. And I mean, Matt just does a great job of getting people and getting food sponsors or barbecuers and other people to bring some food. So that's a good shout out to bring Matt up in this conversation, because he does a great job, and we can share him to the world tonight on his virtualization platform.
And sadly, I think that's the way many of these IT security groups are going to have to go through and function for the next couple months. But that being said, Matt is a shining example of somebody that goes out and puts out the extra effort to bring people in. In fact, he was the person that actually convinced me to go through, and it was just a chance encounter at DerbyCon where we were going to go to Smashburger, but because they weren't open yet, we went to Chipotle. And we were having a conversation, and it was my first DerbyCon. He said, next year you should submit a talk. And he has kind of been my partner in crime, my presenting mentor, and having folks like you, like him, like Barry, who we can just go through. And when we go to an IT security event, we can, we're there to learn, but we're also there to have just a little bit of fun.
I want to take a moment to tell everyone about, well, I don't have to tell you. That's not how I meant to say that. But I don't have to tell you about how the world is changing and has changed in the last week, 24 hours. I mean, every few minutes, it's a thing. So we all know about COVID and all the other stuff going on. But I want to take a minute to talk about how it's changing the IT landscape. Micah, you mentioned your background, how you've been around IT in the different sectors. And I'm having the same experience in life as you, but now I see what is happening to us today, sending workforces home that are not used to working from home. And the wide range of the non-IT people, either all of a sudden we need infrastructure, right? They're using desktops at work and now they need a laptop to go home with, or they don't know how to use VPNs or other technologies to get them connected to the things they need to do while they are working from home. And then we find IT people who simply can't work from home because of what they do. And that would be people like those that support the data center physically inside a data center, or those who are physical desktop, laptop type of support individuals. What are you seeing just in this last week or two here in the U.S. that's causing you to say, wow, that's interesting, or we didn't plan for that? Or are you finding that you've been pretty well prepared, more than you thought?
So that is an absolutely wonderful question to ask. And I think that it breaks down to a lot of it is the various size of an organization. And as you know, I work for a very large financial institution. And as such, we already had done some due diligence, making sure that we have a business continuity plan, making sure that we have multiple redundancies within our environment. So while I myself have been one of those that has been displaced to working from home for the foreseeable future, I've been able to go through and work, I don't want to say one for one as I'm in the office, but surprisingly very well. I mean, I did have to go down into my basement and pull up my emergency whiteboard and take that into my home office new setup, but by doing things such as embracing the cloud environment and the ability to go through and to securely allow access to that, not through a traditional VPN, that has done wonders to make sure that those people that are critical to our business are able to go through and to thrive and survive in this COVID-19 type of world. But whether it was this disaster, I'm in Ohio, so in our case, we're at an escalated risk of tornadoes. A lot of what we are seeing today, what I am actually executing on, comes right out of our business continuity plan.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. Just a day or two ago, I was involved in another conversation where this, especially here in Ohio, this last week, has really gut-checked a lot of companies that thought they had a disaster recovery or continuity plan in place, or thought that it wasn't important enough for their company to have one, and then now, you know, they do. And even though this is an info security talk show, you know, just as a quick comparison, you talk about mom and pop restaurants who never wanted to deal with delivery or carry out. They were a traditional sit down restaurant. Now, because in Ohio restaurants are closed, they're either temporarily closed and out of business, or they have had to evolve their business model. And a lot of that translates into typical security, the IT security world, and having to support our businesses, like you say. One of the things that I think I've seen in the last week that's been of interest is companies that were unwilling to agree to allow workers to work from home because of the old adage, if I can't see you working, you're probably not. And now they're being forced to let their people work from home. And I've heard stories recently, in the last hours even, where companies are looking at things and saying, hey, maybe we could let our workforce work from home. And some of the topics that have come up is, if half my workforce is at home all the time, I only need half of the floor space or half of the liability risk insurance for people being in my building, or a lot of things that would save money that people probably didn't think of. Are you hearing any of that or seeing anything like that with people that you've been speaking with or working with?
So yes, I see a couple different things happening. So for those organizations that have never really thought about business continuity, I see a rush to get the foundations in play moving forward. For organizations that are very large, such as my normal day job, you know, there are discussions within many financial industries about how can we go sure, and generally for the largest, it's ensure the availability of remote resources, i.e. making sure we have enough virtual seats on our VPN that people can get in and still provide value to the organization, can still help the organization. It's things like making sure that your actual call centers, when people call in for help, that they get routed correctly to the individuals. For example, deployment of our voice over IP phones has been a huge godsend to many people in our industries, both IT security as well as the financial to go through. But what I just heard that really kind of blew my socks off was you had touched on that having a certain amount of a reduction of people on site is now going through and leading businesses to question, do they need to have that big of an office foot space? I have heard of various organizations coming up with a weekly rotation. Say you have an A team and a B team. Well, in week one, team A goes into the office. The next week, team B goes into the office. And I was absolutely unaware when you said that there was insurance incentives to that type of an arrangement.
You know, we in my sector now, I came from the healthcare industry and moved over into the transportation segment of the world for my day job. And I am in that particular cycle right now where we came from 6 floors of 150 to 200 people per floor. Now we're all at home working, and with some exceptions of some staff that just needs to be on site. But with those exceptions, now bosses are just email chains are flying around of, hey, this is not as bad as we thought. Maybe we can look at this further when this event is over, et cetera, et cetera. So just in the few short days that my company has been in a permanent work from home status, or semi-permanent, whatever you want to call it, it's been an eye-opener to see the thought process really evolve. And I wonder how many IT firms, like consultants, or people that might normally go on site, or people that are IT folks who are contractors that go to their client's site to do work that might normally or possibly be done virtually, how that will change the footprint of how our industry works. Do you foresee anything like that starting to take shape, or do you think it might start taking shape to where it makes a change?
So I think that there are 2 definite influencers in this. So number one, you talked about the actual management in the business coming to the realization that, yes, we can be efficient remote, but there's the other part. There's the workers that are going through and that they're also learning that they can be efficient. And trust me, I have said for a lot of times that face-to-face is best. And truthfully, up until just recently, I would always go into the office, and that was just my norm. I enjoyed going through and knowing that, hey, when I'm in this location, my mind's on work. When I'm outside of this location, my mind is on other. But I'm starting to realize, and relatively rapidly, that there are some advantages for me as a worker working from home. For example, just for lunch this morning, I got up, I started to log in, lit the grill, put on a rack of ribs, and I had a beautiful half rack of ribs for lunch. How awesome is that?
Well, it's awesome enough that I'm going to come start working from your home starting tomorrow. So yeah,
I have many grills and many smokers.
So it's funny that you say that, because my wife and I last night were speaking about just this week that I haven't been out to eat lunch and have saved. I had the same amount of money in my wallet today as I had Monday, and that I haven't spent that grabbing some breakfast on the way in, or a Dunkin' Donuts coffee or something, and then grabbing a sandwich or whatever at lunchtime, and then just the gas tank full of gas once a week, being able to do those things. And while I agreed with her, I did comment that my new lunch spot, which by the way is our kitchen, seemed to have too much healthy food and not the junk food that I liked, and I complained about the chef. So that did not go well. I ended up back in the basement pretty quick.
Well, my friend, I can help you with that after this talk.
Right on. But further, it is like you say. There's a lot of benefit to the workers. We can save money ourselves. We can. You can just be home, even though the kids. And I know it's hard, especially for those not used to it. I think those first few days working at home, you have a spouse that sees you now and like, oh, you're at home, so you're not working, and it's hard for them to maybe accept that you're at work per se, or the kids and the dog, and yes, you got a little bit more flexibility, but yes, you still have to get your work done. I wonder. I'm so excited, honestly, to see over the next 6 to 8 months, at least here in the U.S., how we how our culture shifts, if it does, and these events that are being canceled right now on a global scale, even sporting events, meetings, churches, you name it, if you're gathering up. But like Matt's event tonight is virtual. Will you start having an RSA or some of these other bigger events try to go virtual and save that, or do they still feel like that face-to-face, like you mentioned, is really where things are still at? What do you think about that part?
So, going through and putting myself in a position where I'm now actively volunteering to go out and speak at conferences has done a whole world of good to me. It's helped me go through and to be more comfortable going through and speaking to a group or even to individuals, which is actually a very good talent for an IT security practitioner. And as IT security practitioners, you know as well as I do, especially on more of the hacker conferences, we like to have our cheeky fun. We like to get into a little bit of skullduggery. So I think that those will come back. There's a couple that I'm actually been accepted to that have either gone through and they're kind of sending out the, hey, we're keeping an eye on this situation. And I just had one earlier this week go through and say, hey, we're all together rescheduling until the fall, which I can absolutely respect and support those types of decisions. I'll tell you this, there was a local conference up in Dayton just a couple days ago before anything really happened within the state of Ohio's current predicament, where Matt and I went up, we were both presenting. We had a great time, but it was remarkably different from the general IT security conference. People were just staying a little bit more to themselves. There was absolutely no handshakes. People were touching elbows. People were tapping each other's feet. And it was just kind of a really weird feeling, and just stopped to make me appreciate what we have in this community.
There is something to that I'm trying to think it as I say it, but as you're talking about how things change. I'm older than you are, and so in this field, I'm at the heading towards the top end of experience and or the age range where people start thinking about retiring, and we have entry level or newer folks, younger kids as I would call them, coming in, but just the societal norms of what is okay, like don't get in my personal space, don't touch me, this, that, and the other. And right, just like you mentioned, a traditional handshake, or the old bro hug, so to speak, is kind of being poo-pooed on now, at least short term, and having to come up with things. Do you think those kind of changes will lead to a mentality change? And I'm circling back to something we already kind of talked about, but I'm trying to sound it out from a different side. But when we do all these changes, and people are so resistant to change in the business world, hey, it works, don't fix it, don't break it, I can't afford that, whatever my case is. Do you think that now with all of this change, whether it's a social change or an economic change because people are temporarily losing jobs, or because a slight recession that might happen economically, and a lot of these other things, do you really think that that's going to be a driving force for any real, I don't want to say radical, but recognizable change from the IT perspective globally, or at least in the U.S.?
I wish I could give you a better answer than this. I don't think things are going to completely go back to the way they were. I think things will move forward and we'll establish a new normal. I think a lot of that is going to go through and put in place a bunch of lessons learned, a bunch of new processes and procedures that we as IT and IT security, we should be a part of. And this is one thing that I think is a tremendous opportunity for us as IT security practitioners. For a long time, we have been criticized as being the department that championed, no, we cannot do this. We used to go through and make our sales off of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And with what the social upturning that we're currently seeing, this is our chance to go through and extend the olive branch, whether it's to a particular business department, whether it's to our end users, to help build trust and to be seen as an enabler, to have a seat at the table and to truly be seen as bringing value. For my organization, one clear message that we had on a call was how happy senior management was with all of IT being able to support the business even in these rocky tides.
And that's really kind of going to be the, I think that right there is where I was trying to get with that big long-winded question before. In a nutshell, is I think this gives the IT departments of organizations the opportunity to show that we're not just an expense to those companies that look at us that way, that we are valuable and that we bring value because we thought ahead, or because we planned ahead, or because we kept pushing to spend a little bit more money here and there, to a point that now people can work from home, and the change hopefully wasn't so brutal. So I hope that is the biggest change that we see, is how IT departments overall are looked at, and then maybe IT budgets get better, and then the overall resultant of that would be that IT security gets better as well. More people, more training, more everything.
So what can we do as IT security groups to go out and assert positive leadership? We've got people that are swimming in an entirely new environment. Most of our users' security awareness training has been what to be done inside the office. It's how to go through and address the normal business types of concerns. Now we're telling people, hey, we need you to pack it up. We need you to work from home for the next few weeks under a threat such as COVID-19, which the World Health Organization has declared a pandemic. How can we go through and help be a guiding calmness in this rapid amount of change?
I think for me and for our company, we took a look at this mid last week as we started seeing Ohio and other states start ramping up very drastic rules and changes that were coming down the pike at us. And we learned how to speed up our delivery of some project, some function, some approvals, etc. So we learned that all the red tape that we put into place for some unknown reason wasn't necessary, or at least wasn't always necessary. We also found that, like you said, the traditional training for most is inside. Hey, when you get this email, here's how you spot a phishing email, or some other web-based nonsense. And we were thankfully quick, to realize that there were also other things that our people needed to be trained on. They needed to understand what a VPN does. And we needed other IT people who are not necessarily tech. Maybe they're programmers, maybe they're project managers in the IT space. We had to teach them what split tunneling was on DNS, because when they got home and started using our VPNs, they would be split tunneled, and what that really meant and how that could still be a negative in some cases. And so we really identified the gaps, the huge gaps in training, and the complacency that we came in with buying some pre-made training, routine from some company, and not really developing in-house training for ourselves about what's specific to our company or our industry and why that matters. So that, to me, I think that is where we as my individual company and our IT department stood out and kind of shined. And I think for others to take a look inward and hopefully see during this time, hey, here's all the stuff that we didn't think to train our people, and maybe reassess what they actually see as important, whether it be procedural red tape or what they think is important from a training perspective, et cetera. I think that's how we shined, came out shining, and I think as a group in IT, maybe others can do. I don't know. What do you think?
So I want to caution you, because what I heard was a lot of really good on the technical side, but we're not just dealing with the technical side. I'll give you a great example. Last Thursday, I ventured out to Kroger's to go through and to purchase just a modest amount of food, a week's worth of food that I had eaten. And when I got there, the store was absolutely packed, and a lot of things were off the shelf. But you know what was still there and still relatively available? Gorgeous slices or gorgeous brisket cuts. So I got myself a 15-pound brisket cut because nobody else was looking at that. And where I'm trying to go with this is that we are being motivated by a bunch of human-related concerns. So not only do we need to shore up the technical, but we also need to address the human concerns. So it might behoove us to stand up maybe a standing meeting that people can join, where you have a representative from IT or security that if people have work from home questions, they can just go through and they can queue up, get an answer without having to go to the help desk, which is basically focused on triaging actual incidents, where people might just have questions. People might just want to know, hey, what do you think about this setup? Can I do X, Y, Z? Which really aren't incidents.
I mean, you're exactly right. Those are, it's amazing. It's simply just amazing to me at how much what many of us, including myself, considered not really ever going to happen again. I considered modern science, modern medicine, modern technology as we know it today to identify and eradicate and or mitigate any kind of virus per se, right? But Mother Nature, boy, she sure has a way of coming back at us, right? Or in a cynical sort of way, maybe this was created by somebody as a biological warfare thing. And I'm not going to get into any of that because I'm not really much of a person like that. But regardless of what it is, Mother Nature really has gotten a good. She reminded us on a lot of steps that hey, you're not as safe and well off as you are. You're polluting me. You're doing all these other stupid things, and I'm gonna thin out the herd a little bit. And that's a very crude way of putting it, but honestly, what you say makes sense. Is that for the purpose of this show, we're worried about IT and technology, but we're a very small subsector of the world, and what everybody else is deeming to be important, life and health and safety and security, not meaning IT security, but global-based security. It's a thing, and I'm definitely interested in how our community, the IT security community, can help the world evolve after this mess is behind us a little bit. For those of you who have not, or was not, I should say, tuned in at the beginning of the show, Micah Brown is our guest. We've been talking a little bit off topic about the coronavirus and how it has changed the IT security world, how it's changed the world as a whole, not your normal bring your own security radio topics. But I do want to circle back to more of the IT security stuff, and I'm sure, Micah, that you've seen, and I know that I have as well, that scammers and hackers and others, they tend to try to be on the leading edge and take advantage of everything. And within just a very few short days of this coronavirus outbreak, a lot of fake coronavirus maps to show you where the virus is spreading, a lot of fake websites with air quotes official information, and downloads on how to keep your family safe. These people put up to trick people into going to their websites and getting a coronavirus for your computer, so to speak. Have you had to deal a lot with that within your organizations, or at least have you heard about it much?
Oh, absolutely. And this is downright scary, and it's really concerning to me on a personal matter. And in fact, one thing that I just became aware of is that certain scammers are making phone and text calls now under the premise for a small down payment will register you in line, pre-register you in line to get vaccinated for you and your family. So there are malicious individuals, as with any of these types of major catastrophic events, that are using it for malicious purposes. And so part of me thinks that this is just a new wallpaper on the same old scam jobs. And for the most part, at medium to large organizations, we do have the technologies to go through and protect our users from this. For users of many popular free email services, they have pretty good engines to protect themselves. But at the end of the day, to me, it comes back to just knowing the basics. So in my new hire training, I say, guys, I'm a little bit paranoid, but when I go online to do bill pay, I go through, I boot up my computer to pay bills, which is a little Raspberry Pi. I'll go through, I'll type the URL in, or I'll already have it bookmarked. I'll click it. I'll pay the bills. I'll unplug the computer, put that small computer back into the safe until I need it for the next time. So the same good habits that we address social engineering and any type of malicious message, whether it comes from email, from text, from a voice call, that's what we need to go through and assert that our users are doing today.
You know, it is amazing. I hadn't even heard about the fake call, like, hey, we'll register for a test sort of thing. So that's a whole new, I guess they call that phishing, right? The voice phishing scam. And so, gosh, you know, it's weird that I say, you know, to be a great security person or blue teamer, that you have to think like a hacker, and which means you almost have to think like a criminal in order to anticipate their moves. But I wouldn't have thought to do that, you know, to register people. Well, yeah, I think because I'm nicer than that, I wouldn't want to, like, trick people out of their money or think that they're going to get tested and be healthy and safe, or their families would be healthy and safe. The money part I get, you know, that's easy to visualize why scammers do their thing. But to make somebody think that they were going to be healthy when in reality they were just going to get scammed for money would just irritate the snot right out of me.
Oh, it irritates me too. But these malicious individuals, how is this any different than the fraudulent FBI calls or CIA calls where we have detected such and such content on your computer, and if you don't pay us so much in credit card, gift cards, we're going to send the police over to arrest you.
Right. Well, so, yeah, and it's not different. I think it's, to me, and again, it's unfair. It's only different because as soon as somebody says, I'm going to have you arrested unless you send me a gift card, I automatically know that that's nonsense, right? So I know that. Granted, there's been enough people fall for it, so not everybody knows that. But it would be hard for people to be, well, again, the government isn't going to call you and say, hey, guess what? Free place in line to get tested. Sign up now. That's not going to happen either because
not tested, vaccinated.
Right. Yeah, and even that because there's not one yet of those even existing yet. So who knows? Man, I tell you, this field is so exciting because of the rapid changes at times, and then it's somewhat, I get excited when I meet great people at these events or just through other interactions. And I thought, man, these are just great people trying to do great things. And then I meet some of the few folks along these other lines that we're talking about, and I'm like, dude, from my Army days, I really just want to kind of kill you where you stand. And it's hard to not want to think that way about some of these vicious people who are probably sitting half a world away in an office getting paid by the hour to see how much they can scam.
Well, I absolutely agree. But I do want to go through and do a callback. To me, a hacker is just a technology enthusiast, someone that enjoys working with technology, that uses technology in new and novel ways. Hackers are not criminals. Within a certain large enough population, sure, we do have some bad eggs. But to me, the term hacker does not insert criminal activity.
That's a very fair statement, and it's always an oft-misused, I should say, term or generic title for someone who is bad guy, compared to those of us in the industry who do things for good and consider ourselves hackers or tinkerers or whatever you want to call us. We've got just a few minutes left with Micah. I want to make sure that we get an opportunity. Micah, we've been talking so much about the things I want to talk about. Is there a topic that's been either exciting for you, whether it's this COVID thing or whatever, that we haven't talked about that you wanted to make sure that you could bring up and share?
Sure. So one of the web presentations that I viewed today was by the SANS organization, and it was Securely Working from Home Deployment Kit. And it's got a 9-page paper that they put together about how organizations can go through and can help those people that have transitioned into working from home. They've gone through and they've made a bunch of their really high quality training material absolutely free. So if you just go to the SANS site and look for Secure Working from Home Deployment Kit, you'll get it there, or you can download it from sans.org/workfromhomekit. Have you been able to see that document?
I have. It's, I forget, like 26 pages or something like that. Has a bunch of links to their different presentations and other videos that they've, like you said, originally or usually cost money to even view. So yes, so I made sure to look at that last week when I foresaw our company taking these steps that we did.
So anyone out there that is running into some challenges, this is a great framework that they put together that's very thorough and robust and can help you make a positive impact, not only to your organization, but to your workers. And if we go through and harness this correctly, we can really build our reputation within the business, which can go through and open up a lot of doors to us as IT security practitioners.
There's, at this point, every resource that we can utilize to strengthen IT, strengthen security, strengthen access to legitimate users is a resource that's worthy of at least taking the opportunity. So yes, bringing up this particular one is awesome. And frankly, since I had looked at it last week, I kind of had it out of sight, out of mind. And I'm glad that you brought it up again for those that may not have known that it existed and was free.
The second thing that I want to bring up with you is I want to tease a little thing. A group of us here in Cincinnati are working to put something together that's going to be very cool for next year. Once we get into more of a firm setup, I'd love to go through and brief that so that we can start to get the word out, but it's going to be something really cool for the city of Cincinnati as a whole.
The reality is that there are so many people in just this neck of the woods. When I say this neck, I mean kind of greater Cincinnati-ish, that are so great in the IT field, not just security, but so much that do so much great work. It's hard to turn around and say, well, I'm going to include only the best people, because you might have 5 of the best and missed out on 50 of the others. And gosh, I love this field, and I love this region for just that reason. So many great things, so many great people doing so many great things.
Absolutely, and the people are the best part of our community here.
Yep, it's been awesome. It's been awesome. Let's see, what else? So we've got just a couple minutes left, but Micah, if somebody wanted to reach out to you for some reason, what ways can they find you?
So the best way is going to be through the Twitters. It's very popular in information security. I highly recommend it. And I'm just at MICAH, K as in kilo, BROWN. You can also find all of the talks and presentations that I put together. I make free and open source, so you can download them at github.com/MicahKBrown.com. Or I'm sorry, /Micah K. Brown.
Definitely take the time to